Welcome to Just Minding My Business. And today I am happy to bring to you a talent acquisition person who has a team with 15 plus years in the business. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Come
Awesome.
right on in.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for having me. So excited for this conversation. Um, I'm Leandro Cartelli. And like you said, I've been doing talent acquisition for more than 15 years, at global companies like Accenture, at tech startups in the Latin American region. I'm actually originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina. So I've worked across industries, consulting, pharmaceutical, technology, always focused on building teams, right? My expertise is around helping businesses understand what they need and helping them bring the best talent that's the right fit for their culture. About a year ago, I started my own business. So now with my team, we help primarily US startups and SMBs staff themselves with remote talent in Latin America. So like I said, I'm from Argentina, so super biased here, but I truly believe in the quality of talent in this region. We have so much commonality with the US. And a lot of startups and small businesses don't really know they can access such a vast talent pool in the Latin American region, and we help them with pretty much everything they need, right? So that's what I do and what our team does.
Okay, wow. Well, that's good to know. So investing time in hiring the right person. How do you know you have the right person? Because usually when people come to interviews, they pretty much will say yes to everything. So how do you know you have the right person?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple of things. The first thing I would say is, um, in all honesty, you never know until they're working, right? It's not a risk-free process because you're trying to determine, the fit for the role, the fit with the company, with the team, their potential, all of that in what 3 to 5, 6 hours, between the different interviews and stages. So it's very very difficult, right? It's not risk-free. Now there's ways to reduce that risk. So I think it all starts many times. Business leaders don't do this, but it starts with really a deep assessment on the needs that they have, and not only their hard skills, right? It's not only about, well, I need a SEO specialist or I need a finance manager, and these are the hard skills and experience they need. But it's also around understanding what the right cultural fit is for them. So how does the company work, right? Are they fast paced? Are they super structured and bureaucratic? What's their style? It's very personal. It's very direct. And making sure this is the first step to then turning around and assessing talent in the right way, right? Because if you don't know this, you might sort of do a checklist of hard skills, but then the person might not be the right person even if they meet the skills. And so that's the first part, right? Looking within. And then when you go out to the market, making sure that you take a structured approach. There are different frameworks to assess talent, competency assessments, right? How you ask questions, how you double down on what you're asking, how you focus on understanding the experience and then the learnings from that experience. Because someone might have an experience, but if they don't maybe learn from that, that talks about their potential, their learning agility. That's also a sign of whether they will be able to adapt to your needs or not and change when things change. And so making sure that you understand how to ask the questions, what you need to ask, making sure that if there's multiple people interviewing, then they're not asking the same things. That's super common. Candidates going through 3 interviews and in each interview getting the same questions, right? And so, well, I'm going to assess the hard skills, you're going to assess the soft skills, and someone else is going to, maybe have a more personal conversation to see if they seem like a fit, from a personal perspective. So you assess different things. And then the last thing I would say is make sure, and this is very important, many companies don't do it, creating assessments for individuals, right? Test their expertise. And that's becoming more and more common in recruiting processes. If you're gonna do content creation, well, just create a piece of content for me as part of the process, and then let's see if that's what we would expect or what we'd be looking for, right? And so I think that's the way you reduce. And then the final thing I would say is being very transparent and honest on what a candidate is going to find when they show it. Because I think when there's a mishire, the business gets hurt, but the person that hurts the most is that individual that made a career decision and choice to change jobs and join your company. And so a candidate doesn't want to go into a job just because, right? They want to make sure they're making the right decision, and being very transparent on the challenges, on the needs, on the current business and company context. That's going to help the candidate and the talent make the right decision. And I tend to be very maybe optimistic in that people know whether they can face a challenge or not. Because if they cannot, they're going to be in trouble after very, very, it's just a few weeks, very quickly, right? And people don't want to make a career change just to not succeed at it. And so being very honest in those conversations, I think it's super important.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because nowadays, when you have, let's say, an ad out, people actually research companies now because they want to make sure that they are going to be a right fit. They go to testimonials. How is it working for this company? I've done it so many times. So how do you work with the company to make sure that their reviews, when the applicants go to check them out, is going to be good? Because the employee's going to tell if it ain't right.
Yeah, and I believe that sometimes it's okay if it is not right, because if the candidate, if the talent that's assessing the opportunity believes that what they're seeing from the company is not right for them, it probably isn't. And they're going to be doing the business a favor by saying, no, this is not right for me. Because there is we work a lot, and in my career I worked a lot um, in topics like employer branding, right? And employer branding and culture, those are things that, of course, businesses can build. But at the end of the day, what you have to communicate needs to be a reflection of the reality that's taking place within the company, within the business. And so if I communicate something that's not truthful, someone is going to come in, they're going to find themselves at a place that they're not happy and excited and was different than what they were told. And they're either going to leave or they're going to have a really bad time. And it's also going to have an impact in the business at the end of the day. And so what I always say is, I always ask this question to businesses that we support. I ask them to describe the company culture, right? If they don't know how to describe it, I work with them and support them and guide them in terms of really understanding how it is that they need to put it in words and really determine, through maybe different assessments, what that culture looks like. And then make sure that you're, like I said at the beginning, honest and transparent in communicating that. Because again, the candidate, it's going to play a big part in helping make the right decision. And if someone looks at your company, looks at your culture statements, gets to know people and doesn't feel comfortable with them in their working style, then it is okay that they say, well, this is not for me, right? Because it's not gonna be the right decision for the candidate or for the business. So I would definitely say, if individuals explore the business and explore the company and see that it's not right for them, that's okay. What I would also say is, well, if you as a business are seeing that the people within your business, people that lead the company and people that are considering joining are all expressing challenges and are all expressing that they're not having a great time, well, you probably need to review a couple of things, right? Um, Cultures can be adjusted, can be changed. This doesn't mean that, well, if it's a toxic culture, it should be sustained and people should join that are looking for a toxic culture. That's not okay, right? You need to consider those reviews and make adjustments to make it suitable, so that people are happy and excited and enjoying working there, right? But you don't have to change the style. If you're fast paced, if you're demanding, if you're perfectionist, that's a culture, and that's okay, right? And there's people that are going to love that are going to be a great fit for that, and there's people that are not. But if you're getting feedback that, well, people are being mistreated, or well, that's definitely not okay. You do need to change that, right? So I think it's a question of being honest. But if you're seeing something that's not okay, then make sure that you address it and you try to change that to make it a good place to work for the people that are going to be a good fit for it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's really important in today's world because applicants do not want to work for a toxic company. They just don't. It's too much stuff going on to have to go to a job and be miserable, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
Nobody is up for that.
and we spend so much time at our shops, right? At the end of
Yes,
the day, and so we want to be at a place where we feel that we belong, where we feel the purpose of the company connects with our personal purpose, where we can have fun, and by the way, where we can be challenged, right? And where we have someone, a leader or a peer, or anyone putting, or the people that report to us, raising the bar and helping us grow, and that's great, and that's fair, and that's part of the journey, but definitely not at a place where you're unhappy and miserable.
yes, yes. So you help your the companies achieve that so that they're more attractive to new hires because now it's a two-way street. It's like you got the company has to like the applicant, they have to fit in, and the applicant has to feel like this is the right spot for me. So it's a two-way street now, and it's not like it was back in the day where people just, whatever was going on, they just accepted it.
Absolutely. And there's the market has times when it's a candidate led market and when it's a company led market, right? Sometimes depending on the current social economic context, you have situations where candidates, let's say, have the power, and where companies do, and maybe that means the other side is a bit more flexible in terms of what they're willing to take. But I think scales get balanced at the end of the day, at one time or the other, because that fluctuates. And so we all need to be very fair with the other part, right? Businesses need to treat fairly and make sure that they're making the right decisions for the people. And people need to make the right decisions for themselves and for the business and company that they work for, right? So what we try to do is whenever a business comes to us and needs help finding someone, we ask a lot of questions about what the need is for the role, and for the function, and where the company is at. But we also ask a lot of questions around what type of persons are a good fit for them, and what are the challenges that they're going to find, and what is the style and culture. And when we turn around, we communicate that to candidates and also understand what it is that they're looking for and what is the right fit for them. And so we try to get people to meet, in the middle, and feel okay and feel good. And I always say that, one of the biggest challenges that I see businesses make as part of this process is not investing the time in preparing. So, planning for what they need, and then throughout the process, right? Talent needs are always urgent. Businesses always, when they need someone, they need it fast, they need it now, and that's understandable, right? You need to run a business, but when you make a bad hire, typically, and there's a lot of research on this, making the wrong hiring decision can cost the company between 50 to 100% of that individual's annual salary, right? That's a huge cost, not to invest a few extra hours in conversations, in thinking about what you need and what's right for you. And so I think that's really something that we typically need to address, and we always advise our clients, invest the time, have the conversations, provide a good candidate experience, because that's a big part of the process, right? Not providing feedback to candidates. They're not a fit, and why? Well, there's just not a fit. We need to tell, we need to provide that information to the candidates, because that makes a huge difference. Candidates that don't have a good experience many times no longer continue to consume products or services from that brand. They're typically going to turn around and be very public and loud about that experience. So that's going to hurt the employer brand.
Yeah.
So, it's, and at the end of the day, by the way, it's also a question of respect for that individual.
Yeah.
And it, unfortunately, it happens a lot nowadays. There's ghosting to candidates. There's no feedback provided, not to the fault many times of the talent acquisition and recruiting teams or companies like my own, but because businesses that we work with don't really invest the time to provide that information or respond to us either. And that's something that I think, as an industry, for talent acquisition and in general, needs to change, and it's a big part of what we try to do at Lana Talent. Really, think about this process in a different way that's more supportive and that's more human for everyone involved.
Absolutely. So if companies want to work with you, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm super active. I post all the time about some of the topics we just talked about. So they can find me. I'm Leandro Cartelli. Lean is how I like to be called. By my full name is Leandro, Leandro. It's an Argentinian name. Cartelli, it's Italian actually, with a double L. So they can find me on LinkedIn, or they can find our company. It's Lana Talent, also on LinkedIn, or lanatalent.com. It's funny. It's Lana, it's LA from Latin America, and NA from North America, because we want to close the gap between North American businesses and Latin American talent. So we call our business Lana Talent.
Okay, got it, got it. So let's talk a little bit about remote work. So does your company support businesses in getting remote talent?
Yes, that is correct. That is, I would say, our sweet spot. So basically, what we do is we focus on providing U.S. small, SMB, small and medium businesses, access to remote talent in Latin America, right? And so um, there's of course roles that cannot be done remotely. We know that. But there's a lot that can be done, and many times, especially smaller businesses, don't know how to access the talent pool in Latin America. Where to start, right? What country should they go to? How do they, contact people? How do they, hire someone in the region? How do they pay for, for that their salary and payroll? And so that's what we do. We advise them when they, when they're open to hiring remote talent. We advise them on their location and the type of individual. We advise them on compensation structure in the region, which is one of the biggest value propositions we have for our clients, because when they hire remote in Latin America, is typically between 30 to 50% more cost effective than in the US, right? For obvious reasons. And so for a small business and startup, which typically we know one of the biggest challenges is the runway they have and the money they have left. And typically, on average, 80% of the cost for a startup is headcount, is people. And so if we can help them reduce that, we're also helping them succeed, right? And that's really our sweet spot. That's what we do and how we support them. I always say you have to be very intentional in making it work, right? If you hire someone remote, it's not like you're seeing each other every day in the office and things get settled and you can work everything out. You need to be very intentional in the onboarding process to help them be successful and have the resources. You need to be very intentional in how you collaborate on a day-to-day basis, so that they're close to you, so that they feel supported, and so that you can also guide them and making sure that they're performing and delivering on the results that you're looking for as a business. So if you're willing to do that, it's super beneficial and it's amazing. If you're not, then just hire someone in your city, go to the office a couple of days a week, and and don't worry about remote time. But it is something that you need to be willing to invest the time in making it work. And if you are invested, it's going to be super successful.
Yeah, because I have a remote worker and I absolutely love him. I mean, he fits right into the culture because culture is important to me. Being a person that came out of corporate America, and I witnessed a lot of things that I didn't like and things that I definitely wasn't going to have in my company. So, based on that, people that work for me are valued. I let them know I hired you because that's your expertise, not mine. So I want them to come to the table with their ideas. What's on your mind? How can we make this work? And I'm pretty open to trying things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we can try it.
Absolutely. Where are your remote workers based out of?
Out of the Philippines.
Nice. And well, that's one of the big. It's interesting, right? One of the big things we see, and it really depends on how you manage, which is great to hear that you're doing good with that, because there is a big part on you and how you collaborate with your team. Time zone tends to be a challenge. We have clients that have tried, Philippines or India or Pakistan, places that have a very different time zone. Some make it work, and some have challenges making it work. Latin America tends to be slightly higher cost than countries like Philippines or India, but has some benefits like same time zone, right? And so it's always good to hear when leaders like yourself can make it work with that time zone difference, because it can be a challenge for businesses as well. And some of the clients we talk to have made some decisions based on that.
Yes, yes. So let me ask you, with your remote team, what type of skills do they typically have for your remote workers?
Yeah, so I would say there's three areas I would focus on. Technology, right? Software developers, everything, back end, front end, full stack developers, product, a lot of UX, UI design, as well. Everything that has to do with developing software and products. Um, then we work a lot with marketing and sales. We tend to see that, especially smaller businesses, one of the first hires, or the first few hires they make, are within the business development round. And so, SDRs, BDRs, and there is a growing market of that type of skill and talent in Latin America supporting US, right? With great English skills. You sometimes you cannot tell the difference whether they were born. Their accent is just so good. Not like mine. You can tell I'm not from the U.S. I have a bit of an accent, but there's people I've talked with in Argentina, in Colombia, that they speak as a native speaker, right? So for sales, that's super important as well. And then we've seen a lot, and we also support a lot of more staff and corporate functions. So HR, finance. We see within HR, we've seen a lot of demand for recruiters. So what I do and my team does, we've seen a lot of companies looking for talent acquisition professionals. So those are really the key skills We support and we hire for, and we really understand the market very, very well. The other thing I would say, something that we've seen over the last 6 months, is a lot of talent for content creators, so copywriters, for example, right? Or designers. We're seeing a lot of that because more and more there is a content economy, right? And there is a lot of demand for support for content creators who are doing good, and we're also hiring for those types of roles. And there is amazing, super creative talent in Latin America. So that's something that we're also seeing grow in the market, and an area that we support our clients on.
Wow. So it looks like you got quite a few things going on, my friend. And I like it with
We're
remote because I'm always, looking for remote workers because I'm a home-based business. So remote workers work for me. And my business is more or less content creation, things like that, sales, marketing. Those are my two main areas that I would probably hire from. So if companies want to tap into your remote workers, how do they do so?
Well, they can reach out to us. We, in our website that we talked about lately, we have a link to contact us. Because there's a lot of companies that have sort of a self-service platform many times for this type of talent. What we try to do different is, and that depends. Some people like it more than others. So I always say we cater for a specific type of business and leader that's willing to maybe invest more time in a more more specialized type of support, right? So we don't have, we have all of our talent in our internal database, and we are talking to talent in the market all the time, but we don't use a platform, and we don't position candidates in front of a business before we're able to talk to that business and understand what it is that they actually need, right? Because we were talking before, right? You can search on our database and find a list of skills. Now, that doesn't mean that individual is the right person for you, because it might not be the right field from a cultural perspective, from a purpose perspective, right? There's a lot of components. And before we send someone, to our clients, we make sure that we know that they have the hard skills, but everything else as well.
Yes, yes, I get it, because you definitely need to have a conversation with the company first to make sure that with the culture is alike, what's the asking, what are you asking, um, what will you, I would say, what's most important and what's, you'll be okay without.
Exactly. We don't want anyone to be disappointed. Not the company, not the business, and not the candidate, right? There's human beings behind every decision we make, right? And we need to be very conscious of that.
Absolutely. So again, give us your website and your LinkedIn handle.
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Leandro Cartelli, that's Leandro Cartelli, that's my last name with a double L, that's Cartelli. And then our website is lanatalent.com. I always say where it came from, because that's so easy to remember, right? Latin America, North America, LA, NA, Lana. So people can find us there. I'm always, especially on LinkedIn, I always share content that's relevant for businesses. So I talk about candidate experience and hiring and best practices, but I also share a lot of content for candidates, right? How to go about a recruiting process and what's important for them. And so I always say that we serve both, right? Businesses and candidates, and both of them are our clients. Yes, honestly, we get, the business and the companies are the ones that pay us, but we serve both sides of the spectrum.
Well, I appreciate. So what time is it in Argentina right now?
It's 5:30. So as we talked about before we started recording, I'm actually sitting at a coffee store waiting for my next coffee. And I'll keep on going a little bit. because like you, I'm an entrepreneur, I have my own small business, and I just love to keep going until late, but I always need a cup of coffee with me to do it.
Well, I thank you so much for taking time out and meeting me for coffee. Appreciate that. And you dropped a lot of good gems on us today, and we truly appreciate it. And audience, thank you as well for stopping by also. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was lovely. Thank you for the time and the conversation. I had an amazing time.
Absolutely.